are here in beautiful, sunny Dunedin, Florida. The spring training schedule begins for the Blue Jays against an AL East rival. Grapefruit action welcomes the AL East champs from last year, the New York Yankees, to TD Ballpark. Hi, everyone, and welcome inside TD Ballpark in Dunedin. I'm Ben Schulman alongside Buck Martinez. Hazel May is down on the field. And like you just saw there, a lot going on in the Blue Jays offseason. What makes you optimistic about some of the Blue Jays moves, Buck?
Well, Ben, first and foremost, they have to improve from a 74-win season a year ago. And they've made some moves that make you believe they can be better. There's a lot of ground to make up, but when you look at the offseason additions, Anthony Santander signed as a free agent. He provides power that's been missing, 44 home runs a year ago. Andres Gimenez, a three-time Gold Glover, but a couple of years ago, he hit .297, was sixth in the MVP voting in the American League. What can you say about Max Scherzer? When he's healthy, he's one of the best pitchers in the game. His intensity has been off the charts so far this spring. And former Blue Jay #1 pick Jeff Hoffman is back with the Blue Jays, a 3-year contract to serve as the closer. He's thrown great so far this spring. And how about Jimmy Garcia coming back? Garcia won 163 games, pitched 163 games for the Blue Jays over 3 seasons. So it's like these guys have really stepped in and fit very quickly in their return to the Blue Jays. Everybody's optimistic this time of the year, but watching Max Scherzer pitch has got everybody locked in. They think they can make some noise in the East this year.
And we will get to see Andres Gimenez start today at second base. But for more on the starting first baseman today, let's go to Hazel May with the big story.
Yeah, guys, unless you've been under a rock, you know the Blue Jays and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. did not come to an agreement on a contract extension prior to Guerrero's Monday night deadline. And I asked Guerrero what the sticking point in the negotiations was, and this is what he told me. He said they had their numbers and I had my numbers. He went on to say, listen, I want to be here. I want to be a Blue Jay for the rest of my career, but it's free agency. It's business. So I'm going to have to listen to 29 more teams, and they're going to have to compete. And according to club president Mark Shapiro, the motivation to have Guerrero in the fold remains the same. He said it's still there. As for Guerrero, he has not closed the door entirely. However, he said if there was an offer, in his words, it would be realistic. It would have to be realistic. He said, I love it here. I want to be here, but it's business. So I want to make sure I'm good with that part of it too. Of course, we'll have much more on Guerrero a little later in the broadcast. Guys?
Hazel, definitely something to monitor going forward, but for today, we have a baseball game to focus on and all the familiar faces in Florida. Bo Bichette, Alejandro Kirk, Vladimir Guerrero, George Springer, and a whole lot more when we come back on Sportsnet.
Details.
Beautiful Dunedin, Florida, the site of the first spring training game of the Blue Jays 2025 Grapefruit League season. The players just getting ready to head out onto the diamond. I'm Ben Schulman alongside Buck Martinez. Hazel May down on the field. And Buck, Whether it's year 1, year 10, or even further, what is the feeling like for a player when they're getting ready to play in the first spring training game?
Well, I mean, every spring you come to camp anticipating having a good year, and these guys are anxious to play the first game. They're tired of facing their own pitchers in live batting practice. They're tired of doing all the drills. Now, for the first time this spring, they're going to face another team, and of course, it's the New York Yankees. They're going to have to compete with the Yankees all season long. But there's a lot of excitement with this team. We talked about the additions to the ball club, and I think they've all been positive. Everybody seems to have fit right in, and John Snyder and his coaching staff, they're really paying attention to details this spring. They want to improve their base running. They want to improve their defense. They certainly want to improve their offense, and the pitching has to be much better than it was last year. To that end, all of the pitchers have come into camp in great shape. You look at Kevin Gausman, he's put on 30 pounds of muscle. He looks terrific. Chris Bassett is throwing the ball very well. Scherzer looks like he's in World Series form so far this spring. Keep your fingers crossed that he can stay healthy. But John Snyder feels real good about paying attention to the details. He said, we're not going to muscle up on teams. We don't have that kind of offense anymore. But we have to pay attention to the little things that are going to help us win games.
One guy that will be at the center of that is David Popkins, as you see Chris Bassett there, and we'll get a little more on Bassett in a minute. But new hitting coach for the Blue Jays. What's your impression of what maybe has changed from last year to this year?
Well, it's just a new voice, obviously, that Popkins comes from Minnesota, and I asked him about his philosophy. He says, we're going to be versatile. We're going to be able to change up on the fly according to who's pitching against us, according to the situation, what's the score on the scoreboard. And they've gone through so many situational drills in batting practice so far this season that it's encouraging. And, you know, like I said, they're not going to overpower teams in the East. They don't have that kind of offense, but they can't make mistakes on the bases. You can't give teams extra outs on defense, and you have to throw a lot of strikes.
We are just moments away from our first action of Blue Jays baseball in 2025. The Blue Jays charging out onto the field. The Yankees are getting ready as well. And let's take a look at who's going to be in the lineup today for the AL pennant winners last year. The New York Yankees brought a couple guys over that either have a spot or likely have a spot on the Yankees team. Look at Ben Rice at the top of the order there. He's competing for that backup catcher role behind Austin Wells this year. So he's someone that has a lot at stake during the spring, and he'll go up left on left against the Blue Jays starter today. It's Easton Lucas on the mound.
Easton Lucas is very interesting. He's 28 years old, former draft pick of the Miami Marlins out of Pepperdine in California, and he's never really started an awful lot. When you look at his record, he has only pitched in 14 major league games, a combination of 3 different teams. But Pete Walker loves his delivery. He loves his physique. He says he profiles like a starter, and they're going to give him a chance to start. Now, making this team as a starter is going to be very challenging. More than likely, he'll start the season in AAA. But it's something the Blue Jays haven't had for a while. That's depth in their AAA starting rotation.
Lucas absolutely shoved with the Bisons last year in the time that he had there, about 20 innings, and he'll have a pretty good defense to help him behind as well.
Well, they sure do, and Davis Schneider is in left field. He made 73 starts in left field last year. Joey Loperfido starts in center, and Nathan Lucas, he can play all 3. Ernie Clement played a career high in games at third base, 72 starts. Bichette Jimenez up the middle. They're going to be a dynamic double play combination. Andres Jimenez has won 3 Gold Gloves, and he is without many peers in the majors defensively. Vladdy Guerrero over at first, and Alejandro Kirk. He made 89 starts a year ago. John Snyder expects him to start maybe 110, 115. But this guy right here, as you watch him during the course of the season, he's going to remind you of Robbie Alomar.
Watching him take ground balls over the last couple days, I mean, it's a show. Sometimes that's not the most entertaining thing to watch, but when he's on the field, he's making plays that you just haven't seen before.
Yeah, he's a lot more than just defense, and he can hit, and he's hitting second in the lineup today. Don Mattingly saw him as a young player with the Mets, and Mattingly thinks for sure that he's got a chance to hit. He hit .297 a couple of years ago.
And we are going to talk to him a little bit later in this ball game. He will join us on the broadcast after he's substituted out. But for now, we get ready for the first pitch of the Blue Jays spring. Ben Rice in the box and Easton Lucas on the mound. Swing and a miss, and the Blue Jays get started the right way. Strike 1.
Well, and that's going to be something Pete Walker wants to see from all of his pitchers, not just the starters, but the relievers as well. Take the advantage. Get the leverage. Pitch ahead.
Lucas has a 4-seamer, cutter, slider, and change. And he's ahead 0-2.
Yeah, the new pitch for him, in his own words, is his slider and his changeup. As a reliever, you can get by with a couple of pitches, but he's added a much better slider, and he's thrown a changeup really for the first time in his career. Something that's really important if you're going to start.
Near miss there for Lucas, and it's 1 ball and 2 strikes. On the other side, Ben Rice played a handful of games for the Yankees last year, mostly filling in at first, but he's catching today. That's actually his more natural position. Called strike 3. Lucas freezes Rice there with an off-speed pitch, and it's a strikeout to start his start.
Yeah, absolutely, and he wants to be efficient. Obviously, when you're pitching as a starter, the more efficient you can be, the deeper into a game you can pitch, and he finishes off Rice with a good breaking ball that catches the outside corner.
Lucas doing a good job of strike throwing early on. Oswaldo Cabrera now up to the plate. Switch hitter takes inside. That pitch unquestionably a ball, but if Cabrera has a question about it, or Kirk or Lucas do, the automated ball and strike system is in play in this game, so players can challenge pitches if they feel that the call was wrong on the field.
Yeah, and it's something that each team has 2 challenges, and if you lose the first challenge, you're down to 1. But if that challenge is successful, you maintain that challenge. So I think you have to be real prudent as far as when you might use it.
Ball on the ground and a diving stop by Vladdy. Throws it to the covering Lucas. Nice play by the Blue Jays for the second out.
We talk about Jimenez with his gold glove. Vladdy's got a gold glove too, and he is one of the best at throwing, whether he's standing on his feet or from his knees, and he throws on the money to Lucas. Look at where he starts. Ranging to his right, Jimenez was up the middle, and Vladdy from one knee throws a strike to Lucas, who had the bag covered. Vladdy can play. He can really play first.
Credit to Lucas too, reeling that in and getting himself to the bag. 2 quick outs for Easton Lucas, with the longtime Met, now with the Yankees in camp, Dominic Smith up to the plate.
Parts of 8 seasons in the big leagues, and it's been a struggle for him the last couple of years. Former #1 pick of the Mets.
Spent most of last season with the Red Sox, had a small cameo with the Reds as well. Swing and a fly ball foul. 0-2. For Smith, his pathway to the Yankees roster as a non-roster invitee might be a little bit blocked. Yankees brought in former MVP Paul Goldschmidt to play first, and if healthy, they have Giancarlo Stanton at DH. So Smith could be playing for other teams as much as the Yankees right now. One hopper over to Jimenez, and his first defensive play as a Blue Jay is routine to end a 1-2-3 inning. Very nice from Easton Lucas, and the Blue Jays hit for the first time next on Sportsnet.
On Sportsnet 1.
Some win their fantasy football leagues, and others are Chris Bassett. 4-10 record for him in the Blue Jays Fantasy League this season. You might see it on the back of him, and he's trying to figure out what he needs to do here. Like Tim Mesa last year, Bassett is today's bat boy for the Blue Jays. And here are the bats he will retrieve. The Blue Jays lineup has a lot of thump at the top of it right now, maybe a little bit more than you're used to seeing in the first spring training game of the season. But Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero, and other guys really wanted to get in at the first chance.
Yeah, they're going to play a lot this spring. I think we saw last year, and I think a lot of these guys suffered because they didn't get enough at-bats. John Snyder's going to make sure that his regulars get plenty of at-bats this spring as they will face Carlos Rodon, and looks like Rodon's having a little issue with the pitch count already. Coming off a great season a year ago, made 32 starts, and that's been the issue for him. If he can stay healthy, if he can stay on the field, he's got a chance to be a premier pitcher. Had a career-high 16 wins a year ago. He's always had the strikeout capability. You can see he's checking with pitch count right now, and obviously everybody getting used to it once again. Ben Wright's the catcher, giving him some signs over the pitch count and seeing if he's receiving them okay. Four-seamer, slider, changeup, curveball, and a cutter, and his fastball will average 95. He's always been a strikeout pitcher. He'll come at you.
First pitch swing, Bichette rolls it to second base. Braden Shoemake over to first. There are few lefty starters in the majors who throw as hard as Carlos Rodon.
Yeah, and like I said, he's just dealt with injuries throughout his career, and last year he was healthy. Signed a 6-year contract with the Yankees in December of 2022. In 23, he even had some forearm issues to start the season, got a late start to his season, but when he's right, he's as good as any lefty in the big leagues.
Speaking of lefties, left-handed hitter Andres Jimenez takes outside in his first plate appearance in a Blue Jay uniform. Should approach to start as he takes a strike there, 1-1. Buck, you had mentioned earlier the .297 average for Jimenez in 2022. He had 17 homers in that season. Was one of the best players in all of baseball that year, and now he's trying to get back to that form.
Yeah, he told me that last year he just tried to do too much, and he got off to a decent start in the season, but then he started to tinker around with his approach, and this year he's in a good spot. He knows who he is. He knows that he doesn't have to provide power for this team, but he wants to get back to the winning ways he had a couple of years ago. He's in a good spot emotionally as well. He's got some fellow Venezuelans here on the team. Anthony Santander is here. They're both from Venezuela, and they live in the same town. And Ali Sanchez is a backup catcher, non-roster guy, and Victor Martinez. He has been here all spring long. Lots of familiarity for Jimenez.
Jimenez has described Ali Sanchez as his best friend. It's pretty cool to have your best friend in camp with you as you both are at spring training for a new team.
Yeah, they have played together in the big leagues. They've played together in winter ball, and now they're back together with the Blue Jays.
Off the handle, it lands in left center field. Maybe not the hardest base hit he's ever had, but a base hit for Jimenez the first time he puts the ball in play as a Blue Jay.
Yeah, and you know, top of the order is going to be interesting for the Blue Jays. Who's going to lead off? Who's going to hit second? And John Snyder's going to experiment with a lot of combinations. You take a look at this pitch. It's down. He stays on it and flares it over the shortstop's head into the outfield. But there's going to be a lot of manipulation among who starts at the top of the order ahead of Vladdy and Anthony Santander, who's probably going to hit behind Vladdy in that fourth spot.
Throw over to first. One thing Jimenez brings to the Blue Jays is stolen base ability as well. He's a guy who could swipe 30 or more bags in a season.
Yeah, the Blue Jays obviously haven't had much speed on the bases, and they haven't been a very good base running team lately.
First pitch to Guerrero. Called strike. Vladdy's smiling. I wonder if he was thinking about tapping his head there for a second, but he opts not to.
Nah, you don't want to tap it in the first inning, that's for sure. You only get 2 in the course of a game.
Just a monster year, of course, last season for Guerrero. 323, 44 doubles, 30 homers, 103 RBIs. July, August, he went on one of the great hitting streaks in Blue Jays history. And he looks just as good right now physically, if not better, than he did last year.
Yeah, he is in a different place now. He's 25 years old, soon to turn 26, and he's just one of those guys that He understands who he is.
Jimenez takes off and easily swipes second base.
Well, Vladdy's standing at home plate, nodding in agreement with Jimenez because he has moved himself into scoring position. Ben Rice didn't have much of a chance to throw him out. But first stolen base of the spring for the Blue Jays, and he gets a walking lead, gets a good break, and never even looks back. I like that because it's not going to take any speed away as you just focus on sliding into second and don't peek over your shoulder.
Guerrero laces the 2-1 to right field. Coming around third is Jimenez, and the throw goes into second. 1-0 Blue Jays on Guerrero's RBI single.
For run producers like Guerrero, it is so much easier to hit with a runner in scoring position than it is with a guy at first base. Because now you know it'll just take a single to score the runner from second base. And you cut your swing down, and Vladdy does this as well as anybody. Goes the other way to pick up an RBI.
So now Guerrero on first, 1 out, and Alejandro Kirk at the plate. Home plate umpire today is Adam Beck. Dan Iasonia at first, Vic Carapaza at second, Sean Barber at third. You had mentioned it earlier, Buck. It's a big year for Alejandro Kirk. He is going to be the lead catcher as the roster stands right now. They have some catchers in that compete to play with him, but he is the guy right now behind the plate.
Yeah, he certainly is. It's a different situation for Alejandro. You know, obviously, in the last few years, he's been splitting time with Danny Jansen, and they both felt like they were going to catch about half the time. But Alejandro's been down here in Florida since November. He's worked very hard. I asked John Snyder, what's the number you expect from Kirk? He said about 115 games. I think that'd be a good number for him. We mentioned last year he started 89 games, and that was a career high. Of course, most of that came after Danny Jansen was traded.
Kirk smashes a ball to left. What a beautiful diving catch by Ismael Munguia. And that's allowed out for Kirk.
Yeah, Kirky's been swinging the bat well this spring early on, and I just think he's in a good spot. He knows that he's responsible for this pitching staff now, so he really has a double workload where he's got to learn everybody. But he puts a good swing on this, and it's a liner. Nice play in left field by the young left fielder.
Joey Loperfido steps in now, takes down an away ball 1. Vladdy on first after his RBI single. And Loperfido hits it foul. 1-1.
Loperfido got 137 at-bats last year after the trade from Houston. And obviously mid-season for a young player trying to get acclimated to your new teammates, your new team. I think he's in a much better spot right now. He is part of this ball club.
Pops it up back of short. Munguia camps under it, and he'll make the play to end the inning. Blue Jays on the board, though, and guess who? Vladimir Guerrero Jr. His RBI single scores Andres Jimenez.
Welcome back to TD Ballpark. Now that Negotiations on his contract are behind him. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is turning the page, and as you've seen already in this ball game, firmly setting his sights on the baseball field. Now, he's already told us he will not address his contract in season, nor will he be thinking about free agency, just concentrating on victories. Now, Guerrero did admit that this entire contract process has fueled his desire to have another big season. It's great motivation, Guerrero told us. I wake up every day thinking about working out harder than before and trying to put up good numbers, staying healthy, and going to the playoffs. So, guys, the Blue Jays fans are hoping a motivated Guerrero is also a dangerous one on the baseball field. Guys?
Absolutely, Hazel. And Buck, correct me if I'm wrong, but a good Vlad season helps everyone involved. There's no downside to him playing well.
No, he has to play well. He's got a lot at stake, and obviously the ball club does too. Aaron Boone was asked about the Guerrero situation in reference to Aaron Judge, who went through the same thing, who played an entire season without a contract, looking toward free agency at the end of the season. And Aaron said it was never an issue with Aaron Judge, and I don't think it's going to be an issue with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He is in a good spot. And Aaron Boone said, you know, Aaron Judge played for the team that year, and he had a great year, and he was rewarded. He elected to go free agency. He went out there and sought many of the offers and then came back and signed with the Yankees. I mean, that's still a possibility for Vladdy as well.
Certainly is, as Everson Pereira is the leadoff hitter for the Yankees this inning. Yeah, it's always a possibility that you go to the market and you just see what teams are offering, and then you and the Blue Jays as well can figure out what they're comfortable with.
Well, you know, Vladdy is exactly what you want in free agency. He's young. He knows the market. He's loved by the fans. He was born in Montreal. I mean, there's everything you want, and I just think it's difficult to find somebody that you can replace him with. I think he's irreplaceable. That's my opinion.
Opinion of a lot of people, as Everson Pereira gets hit by a pitch there that ran in. So he'll go down to first.
But, you know, Vladdy is in a different spot than he's been the last couple of years. Even last year, he turned into a man. He's a leader. This is his ball club. He knows what he has to do to represent himself and his team. And he also feels proud to represent Toronto and Canada.
First pitch strike to Spencer Jones, big prospect for the Yankees.
Big prospect indeed. He's 6'6".
Where are they finding all these guys? Everyone around them is 6'5" and up.
Well, one thing he's got to do is he's got to cut down the strikeouts. He had 200 strikeouts in Double-A last year in 122 games. But boy, oh boy, you get intrigued by his physique. He's got great speed. He's a good outfielder. He's got a strong arm. There's a lot of positive things to be impressed by, and I wouldn't worry about the strikeouts just yet.
Called strike three. He punches out there on a front hip breaking ball, and Jones is the first out.
Well, one thing that Pete Walker has noticed in his early experiment with Lucas is that he throws strikes. He said he knows who he is. He knows what his stuff is. And he saw him in 2 appearances last year in relief pitching for the Blue Jays.
George Lombard Jr. hits it foul off the top of the Blue Jays dugout fence. 0-1.
George Lombard Jr., of course, his father is the bench coach for the Tigers, and he was a #1 pick just 2 seasons ago. Good-looking player. Put up decent numbers in his second season of pro ball.
Swing and a miss and a snap throw to first. I think the runner was back in time anyway, but Vlad couldn't hold on. And George Lombard did play in the majors as well. Had some time with the Braves, Tigers, Rays, and Nationals.
Longtime coach with the Dodgers. He was a terrific coach for LA, and now he's the bench coach for A.J. Hinch in Detroit.
Lombard Jr. coming off a season split between A and high A. A little bit light in terms of the batting average, but one thing he can really do is run. He stole almost 40 bases. 1-2. High and outside. Slightly more grueling inning for Easton Lucas. Threw only 10 pitches in the first, has thrown 12 pitches here in the second. Now he'll check on the base runner Everson Pereira. Called strike three again, back-to-back punch-outs for Lucas. He's looked really good through an inning and 2/3.
Yeah, he's got a great delivery. Right now, he's throwing out of the stretch because he's been a reliever most of his career, but I love the way he attacks the strike zone. Breaking ball backdoor, received well by Kirk, and he had 10 pitches in the first inning. He's been very efficient and very aggressive early.
All three of his strikeouts have come on his cut fastball, by the way. And there's a first pitch strike. This is Ismael Munguia over from the San Francisco system last year. You can see he had a pretty nice year between AA and AAA. One. Hit foul, and again Lucas ahead, 0-2.
Ben, you know what happens when you throw a lot of strikes? Hitters have to expand their strike zone. They have to swing the bat, and they don't have the luxury of laying back and getting a pitch down the middle to hit. That's what Pete Walker is constantly preaching to his pitchers. Be the aggressor. Put the pressure on the hitter. By throwing strike one, strike two, now the hitter becomes very, very defensive.
Hit softly on the ground at third base. Clement has it, and that's another scoreless frame for Easton Lucas. 1-0 Blue Jays after an inning and a half on a beautiful day in Dunedin, Florida.
On Sportsnet 1.
The 2025 Blue Jays promotion schedule launched today, and there are tons of exciting promotions to check out this season. Start with the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Silver Slugger bobblehead by being one of the first 15,000 fans at the ballpark on Monday, March 31st. Get your tickets at bluejays.com/promotions. A lot of new, fresh promotions for the Blue Jays coming out this year. Ernie Clement back with the Blue Jays, and he takes a pitch outside from Rodon. It's interesting to think back to a year ago about right now. Ernie Clement, a question mark for the Blue Jays as he pelts a ball foul. A guy who was out of options, who had a huge camp and played his way onto the roster, and then once getting on the roster, played his way into a second half starting role.
Yeah, he really played well. First time in his career he had a chance to play on a regular basis, and he certainly made the most of it. There's a good changeup from Rodon. You know, Ernie, he had 434 at-bats, more than he's ever had. And there's David Popkins tackle with Bo in the dugout. And Ernie gets himself a base hit.
Classic Clement line drive right up the middle.
But yeah, Ernie feels pretty good about where he's at in this spring. He knows he's still has to prove himself, and he's ready to do that. He can play third, of course, and he's more than likely going to be a backup at shortstop, as opposed to moving Jimenez to short when Bo doesn't play short. Ernie Clement will probably play short in a backup situation.
First pitch to David Schneider is strike one. Schneider and Clement living together again during spring training, as they did last year, with no Spencer Horwitz now in the organization, as Clement takes off and swipes second.
Ernie was 12 for 15 in steals a year ago. He is the fastest guy on the team, and he's got good speed, and now with regular playing time, he has a better feel about when he can steal and when he can be most effective. We saw the benefit of a stolen base in the first inning when Jimenez stole second and scored on Guerrero's base hit.
Blue Jays are testing Rodon and Rice early. David Popkins did tell me today, we want to be able to score in a lot of ways. If you score in one way or two ways, teams can shut you down. Maybe speed is one of those ways. The Blue Jays are going to do it. Schneider lifts the ball to right field, settling under it Duke Ellis. And he'll make the catch. Clement is going to try to advance here. Ellis airs it out, and Clement gets in there. That was a risk, but you take your gambles in the spring, and it paid off for Ernie Clement.
Well, it's the mindset that they want to instill on this entire offense. Be aggressive. Take some chances. And they've practiced base running all throughout the early days of the spring. So Clement with good speed goes back and tags up. It's a medium fly ball to right. The throw is offline, and Ernie's in safely. So now that forces the Yankees to play the infield in.
Nathan Lucas taken down and away, 1-0. Really good finish to the year for Nathan Lucas last year. Came up in the last couple weeks of the season. You can see there he raked in his time as a Blue Jay.
Yeah, he's hit everywhere he's played. He's just never had a real good opportunity to play in the big leagues. He hit in college, he hit in the minor leagues, and whenever he gets a chance to get to the big leagues, he comes up with good at-bats. He and Will Wagner are very similar in their approach, where they put the bat on the ball, then they are always a tough out.
He's got a very legitimate shot, does Lucas, to be on this ball club. There's probably at least one outfield spot open, and maybe to start the year you could say two, with Dalton Varsho still returning.
And this is one thing Lucas does very well. He's got a good eye at the plate. He's not trying to force things. He knows he has to get a good pitch to hit, and especially in a situation like this where he can drive in a run.
Check swing there. They say it didn't hit Lucas, and coming to the plate is Clement. He'll score. So it's ball four. Thought for a second it might have tipped him. Wild pitch makes it 2-0 as Lucas heads down to first.
Early in the spring, his first game obviously, but a couple of stolen bases, an advance on a fly ball to right, and the Blue Jays have turned it into 2 runs. That is another situation where the catcher just reacted very late. That ball is not that far away from the catcher, and it goes off his mitt back to the backstop.
Now maybe the most intriguing player in camp for the Blue Jays, at least for some, Aurelvis Martinez, is at the plate for the first time, DHing today. He hits the ball hard, stopped at third by Cabrera. He'll throw to second for one, and over to first. That's a double play to end the inning. Blue Jays tack on another thanks to the speed and base running of Ernie Clement. It's 2-0 Toronto after 2.
At Sleep Country, we know that for every reason that keeps us awake, there are
Yes.
Hockey Night in Canada returns tonight as Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs take on Jacob Slavin and the Carolina Hurricanes. Don't miss the action at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific on Sportsnet Ontario, Sportsnet Pacific, and CBC.
That's got to be a little bit of a downer after the Four Nations hockey.
I know.
It's like you're playing the Stanley Cup, and then all of a sudden it's another exhibition game when it's actually a regular season game. That was terrific.
It was such an event, a lot of fun for both Canadian and American hockey fans. And now as Canadians and Americans meet to watch baseball, there's a new pitcher on the mound. It's Brendan Little.
Yeah, Brendan Little, he had quite a season last year with the Blue Jays, appeared in 49 games, and he's got the best sinking fastball on the team. He's got a terrific sinker. His goal this spring is to have more consistency with his cutter and his curveball. Give him something he can throw for strikes if he should happen to miss with that two-seam fastball.
1 out of Braden Shoemake is hooked to first, backhanded by Vlad, and a good cover by Little.
And Vladdy got kind of a tricky hop right at the end, but he stayed with it and was very focused on picking it up and made a good feed at Little.
He also had the benefit of Andres Jimenez hooking behind him.
Watch how this ball bounces, kind of an awkward bounce, and puts Vladdy on his knees, but he gets up and flips in time.
So quick out for Little, who was such a prominent reliever for the Blue Jays last year, but actually didn't make the team out of camp. Started the year as the third lefty behind Meza and Cabrera. Really stuck after he came up in June. First pitch strike against Duke Ellis. Ellis, mostly a minor leaguer last year, did appear with the White Sox and Yankees for 11 total games, and a lot of practice for Vlad at first. He gets another grounder and an awkward play, but everyone's all right.
Yeah, when you're playing behind Brendan Little, you better be prepared to have a ground ball hit in your direction because he's going to hit a lot of ground balls. Vladdy's had a couple in this inning, and Little, he can get some ground balls, and this is a bang-bang play. I think Vladdy got surprised by the speed of Ellis hustling down the line and goes, whoa, that was close.
He gave a thumbs up, so everyone's all right. And he gets an extra second here to calm the heart rate as the top of the order comes back up for the Yankees in Ben Rice. Two outs on 4 pitches for Brendan Little.
Again, it's exactly what you want to do if you're a reliever. Come out of the bullpen and throw strikes. Each time you throw an additional pitch to a batter, he has a little more information on what you're featuring on that given day. So you come in, you throw strikes early, it forces them to make contact, and he's got 2 quick outs here. Very, very efficient.
There's another strike. It's 0-2. Strong first 2 innings for Easton Lucas. Now Little trying to make it a third scoreless. 0-2. Couldn't get him to chase in the dirt. Called strike 3 for Brendan Little, and a 1-2-3 inning for the lefty. Great Blue Jays pitching thus far, and that's part of the reason they're up 2-0 at the middle of the third. Drafting well is always important, and in respect, Chris Bassett did not have his best year. 4-10 in the Blue Jays Fantasy League that Commissioner and Green Bay Packer fan Dalton Varsho runs, and this is the punishment for last place, Buck.
Yeah, man, Chris Bassett, he's a good sport about it, of course. He's going to play the game, and he went 4-10, and he knew that he was going to be the bat boy for the opening day. So, you know, that's what this team has. They got a real good chemistry, a lot of guys that get along really well, and that's a big step in the right direction for sure.
The order for the Blue Jays, Bo Bichette grounded out on the first pitch he saw in the first inning. It's obviously a very tight-knit rotation as well, a lot of carryover. Bichette hits it foul, 1-1. And then you take that